reacted to John Roberts deciding to take that leap and actually issue a statement. This is Mike Cernovich, who said Trump has the political capital and then some to ignore judges who tell them to allow terrorist gangs to remain in the USA. It's not a close call. John Roberts lives in his DC media bubble and overestimates his power. It's all made up. Trump can take it away easily. Jeremy Carl, he replied, this is actually a pretty funny one. John Roberts is George Bush's worst mistake outside of the Iraq War, and he's still got time to take the lead. So this was a pretty common argument, Ryan, on X yesterday, that the Cernovich point about impeachment should be pursued by Congress. Obviously, Congress really doesn't have the votes right now. There's no way to imagine that you could go get some of these impeachments through Congress. But Trump sort of throwing cold water on it in that primetime interview with Laura Ingraham was quite interesting as well, because this was some of his loyal MAGA media defenders who spent the day saying impeachment is a perfectly reasonable, rational response here. You have Trump instead saying, nope, not going to do it. You can't do it.
And yeah, there is history on this. That's why he's saying for more than 200 years and not for the entire history of our country. I think it was under Jefferson. Should have looked this up before we started the show. But there was a judge that, I think it was a Federalist judge, that was ticking Jefferson off, and his party tried to get rid of him and tried to impeach him. And I think he was saved by one vote. And that set the precedent where Congress decided, look, we're only going to impeach judges for corruption. We're not, if we don't like your ruling, we're going to appeal it and we're going to push it to a higher level. And so since then, basically no political party has ever tried to impeach a judge because they didn't like the ruling. I heard the Cernoviches of the world complaining, where was John Roberts when AOC and the rest of the Democrats were saying that they were going to pack the courts?
Yeah.
And I would say, okay, fair question. The answer is, that's not out of the realm of American historical precedent. FDR, that's right there in the law. The number of Supreme Court justices is not set by the Constitution. It's set by Congress. FDR, when he had a political fight with the Supreme Court, threatened to pack the court. There was public outrage at him. He backed down, and the court, kind of intimidated by his move, started letting a bunch of the New Deal, the Blue New Deal stuff through.
Freudian slip.
Yeah. So they let that stuff go through. And so then, all right, fine. So, but it was a push and pull of politics. It is also true that there was an effort to impeach a judge in whatever 1802 or whatever for something they disagreed with. So Republicans could try again if they won, which is what gets me to Trump. I think he's like, why are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Because you don't have 67 votes to do this.
Yeah.
It's like this Elon, it all came from Elon Musk, or it's probably a reply.
Well, he started echoing Bukele.
Bukele, get out of here. Bukele, we're not taking constitutional advice from
Seriously. But Musk was quote tweeting approvingly the Bukele plan to crack down and restore democracy.
And Bukele did that, but
allegedly,
Bukele certainly did not invent an executive or getting rid of his independent judiciary. That's like textbook. And yes, obviously, if you want to set up a dictatorship or some type of extremely powerful executive, you get rid of the judiciary. That doesn't take a constitutional scholar to figure out. But they don't have the votes. So his to me, the almost more interesting answer there was about, would you ignore one? Would you ignore a ruling? And he says, well, I never have.
Right.
But he doesn't say he wouldn't. On the other hand, bro, yes, you did. You just ignored one yesterday. You're acting or Monday. You're acting like you were not told to not deport these guys to the El Salvadoran torture chambers.
Well,
and you told the judge to F off.
Well, I was going to say, I think that was actually another interesting part of what he said, is he's maintaining, and a lot of people in MAGA world are maintaining that, and I shouldn't say MAGA world in this case, in the White House, are actually maintaining that was not done intentionally, that it just was happenstance. And so...
What's that? You're breaking up, can't hear this ruling. Also, it is.
I hope that's what actually happened. He's like on Air Force One.
Can't hear it. Also, it is important to point out, Trump has named it the Gulf of America. So therefore, not international waters, right?
Interesting. Well,
lawyers, fact check that for me.
I mean, things can be called America.
If it was the Gulf
be
of
America.
Mexico, then he might have an argument, but it's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore. It's Gulf of America. Go look up of.
They're also, but even on that, they're disputing whether or not the verbal order, I mean, it gets into insane, arcane legal questions, whether the verbal order, the time that the verbal order came out versus the time the written order came out, compare that to the flight logs and when all of the process was able to. We don't need to get into it, but.
Right, and also we have learned that as suspected, they made some mistakes. Somebody who came in legally, was seeking asylum, just an artist, has nothing to do with this gang, is on the flight, and who knows if Bukele has tortured them since then, has killed them. To me, the people involved in this, when Bush used to do it, they would call it an extraordinary rendition. We have rules against torture, and so what Bush would do is he would send people mostly to Egypt and elsewhere and say, you torture them, therefore we're not torturing them. We now understand that no, that doesn't count. That doesn't get around the constitutional prohibition on torture.
Well, and what you're referring to is these reports. This is one from the Miami Herald that is the Venezuelans alleged to have been gang members, Tren de Aragua, their families who have seen them in the Bukele video. Speaking of Bukele, the video that Bukele released of them getting off of the plane in El Salvador, they sort of spotted their family members and have said, they're denying, actually, that these family members have any ties whatsoever to Tren de Aragua. We can put B7 on the screen. This is getting back into the tattoo debate. This says, quote, relatives said he had several tattoos that are testaments to his love of family. One bears the name of their daughter. Another on his arm reads, fuerte como mamá, strong like mom. A third shows two clasped hands representing him and his partner next to the date they began dating, but it gets into that question again, Ryan, of whether people are being swept up into these deportations because they have tattoos that are identified with Tren de Aragua, which is something we do repeatedly hear cited by the administration as reasons for those reasons for the deportations. Now,
you've done some reporting down on the border. You've met ICE agents, right? Would you want your fate in the hands of think about the ICE agents you've met, all right? And it's a meritocracy.
Yeah.
These are the people who wound up as ICE agents, right? Would you want your fate in their discerning hands? And the question that they have to answer, this ICE agent, who's working down in southern Texas or wherever they are, has to look at a tattoo on a Venezuelan person's back. And they have to distinguish whether that tattoo is a Tren de Aragua gang affiliated tattoo or it is some other ink that the person found to be attractive the day they went, or like for many people, the artist just drew it because this is, you go in, you're like, you're an artist, give me what you got. So the question of whether or not you will be hooded, have your head shaved, tortured, and potentially killed in an El Salvadoran prison is going to be answered by one ICE agent looking at your tattoo and deciding whether or not that, is that enough due process, you think?
I hate that.
How confident would you be that ICE agent is going to get it right 100% of the time?
I hate the Salvadorian involvement here. Obviously hate that there are any allegations of torture. If I were concerned about due process, I would not enter a country illegally or stay in the country illegally. And that's one of the questions that I have right now is whether these hundreds of migrants are people who were...
What if you were told, here's the process?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
You apply for asylum.
That's what I'm wondering.
You report to this particular spot.
Yeah.
You get a number. Then you show up for court.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering.
That's the process. You're told that's the process. That's the legal process.
Yes.
And then some ICE agent says, actually, I kind of think that tattoo might mean you're in a gang. I'm going to send you to Bukele to check out.
We were talking about this months ago. I think one of the biggest challenges or tensions in the Trump administration's deportation policy is that the United States of America under Joe Biden, unfortunately, opened up an actual legal